All right, we are live. Get live here on the Instagram. All right, there we go. All right, we are good. Let me just do some editing here, and then we will get going. All right. Hang tight. Let's just do some quick editing. All right. All right, it's gonna be a quick minute. I'm gonna do some quick editing here. And we'll get ready to roll. All right. All righty. Today. All right. All right, I think we are good. Let's save that. All right. Come back into the. All right, so this was obviously last minute. Let me just give it a minute. Hold on one sec. Just gonna put a post out there. Sometimes. Hang tight. All right. All right, let me run through a couple quick announcements before I begin. Obviously, this was last minute. I've been on in a minute, so it's only probably a couple more times I'll be able to get on this year with the holidays. So first and foremost, those that do celebrate Thanksgiving, hopefully everybody had a good Thanksgiving. However you celebrate, I really don't give a shit, to be honest with you. for those that did, such as myself, and enjoyed time with family and, celebrated in your own unique way. Hopefully everybody had a good time. Everybody's safe. Everybody didn't eat, drink too much, and all that good shit, right? So let me put that out there first and foremost. Also, let me put the ticker on the bottom. Add edit the banners. Hold on 1 second. Just got to do one more thing here. Hold on 1 sec. All right. All right, here we go. All right. So let me run through some quick announcements where I give a little more time for some people to get here again last minute. Hopefully everybody gets the notifications. So first and foremost, yes, I know I've already started booking them. The 2025 yearly forecast readings, I've started them. So you can book yours now. I do them from now to about the end of February, last week in February, give or take. And just basically what it is, just to give a basic summarization, because some people are emailing, asking like they want this long, drawn out, detailed explanation of a reading. It's actually in the title. It's a yearly forecast reading. It basically gives you a month by month forecast of what you can kind of be in store for, what you can expect from the spirits, the gods, the goddesses, the demons in 2025. I've been doing it the last several years. Some of you guys have been doing it from year one since I started it, so you know what it entails. It's just that. It's helpful information to kind of prepare for the year, because now we're at that time of the year now where the year's winding down, and we should be looking again at what we accomplished this year and also what we failed at this year, and what are our goals, obviously, moving into 2025.
Did you feed him?
Yeah. He just took them out. Back in. All right. So you can book yours now. You can book a 2025 yearly forecast reading. Just shoot me an email. And please include in the email, very important, please do not email me, tell me I'm available Wednesday at 2:00. It doesn't work like that. I sure wish it did, and I sure wish it was that easy and that convenient, but it just doesn't work like that, okay? Send me a full weekly availability of what you're available at through the entire week and the time zone that you're in, and we can make that work. That, along with any other reading I offer, as you know, I also offer throughout the year, Klipothic demonic readings, Egyptian oracle readings, Santa Muerte readings, shadow work readings, which is always a good reading. If you're looking for a reading to kind of see what you got going on currently, what's important around you, what you need to focus on, the shadow work is ongoing, it's continual. Deity readings to see what gods, goddesses, demons, and spirits walk with you. Or maybe you're just interested in a spiritual consultation. Everything I'm saying is going on the ticker there on the bottom of the screen. You should be able to see it. Just shoot me an email with that information. Again, your full weekly availability and the time zone that you're in. It makes it very easy to find a date and time that works for both of us. All right. Also, if you want to sign up for classes, do that now. You can go to the official Patreon page of Primordial Chaos. That's patreon.com/Baniti. Again, that information is on the ticker at the bottom of the screen, BANITI. Patreon.com/Baniti. If you go to the webpage there, click the collection section, you will see all the current ongoing classes. Again, with constant new classes being added every time. You have the ability to come and participate live in the classes. And they're done via Zoom. If you can't make it live, because obviously it's impossible for everybody to make it live due to people's work schedules, personal life schedules, but everything is recorded and archived. You get access to everything in the archives when you join Tier 3. It's going back almost 5 years worth of classes and counting. Trust me, you won't have enough time in this lifetime to do all the work that's on there. So if you are looking for something to take your path of self-mastery, aka left-hand path, occult practice to the next level, and you want to do the work and you just don't want to sit in the background anymore and just tune in to classes and videos and read books, check it out. Patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI, tier 3. That's the tier you want to join. Also, check out all the social media platforms, which we are live right now on Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, on Facebook, Primordial Chaos, 2 words. I gotta see how I can incorporate. I haven't looked into it. I'm sure you could add the TikTok to this stream because you could do multiple streams. I keep forgetting to do that. I'll make sure I check into that for the next video. But also check us out on TikTok, Primordial Chaos 3 on TikTok. And then right here, obviously on YouTube. Support those platforms. And don't forget to check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. There's got to be a way you can add the TikTok. Let me see something real quick. I think I can hit the edit button and do that. Let me see. Add new destination. No, I don't see TikTok on here on this list. It's just Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Twitter, Instagram. Oh, you could probably do it through the custom RTMP. Anyway, I'll look into that next time. I don't want to mess with that now because I only have a couple hours. Got to get up early in the morning. But I wanted to come on here, touch base on that. So we're winding down now, right? It's that time of the year as we approach the season of stasis, or what some call the winter solstice. And it's time now to really go in, inwardly on a hardcore level and do that reality check. How'd you do this year, right? Did you accomplish your goals? Which goals did you? I'm sure we all failed at some things we tried to accomplish this year. Where'd you fall short? What things do you need to improve on and work on? And then most importantly, what's your goals for next year? Remember, you always got to have goals on this path. Okay, we don't just wander cluelessly about and not have a direction or a purpose of what we're trying to do. All right. So that'll be kind of the continuing theme through the rest of the year over these next several weeks. Leading into the new year, we will have for Patreon. Just let me put that out there. There are no mentorship calls in December. We do have the one final end of the year 2024, end of the year 2025 New Year class, which will be at the end of the month of December, like we've done the last. I think we did 2 years now. But that'll take place at the end of December. So you don't want to miss that. If you're a Patreon member, you must be tier 3 and above to attend that class. So anywhere from tier 3 on up, you have access to that class. All right, let's get into the title. This has been coming up a lot lately. People have been reaching out. I've addressed this on and off over the years. I want to go a little bit more in depth, right? You see the title. Is everything that is being classified left-hand path and occult spirituality today all the same? And the answer is absolutely not, okay? Over the years, a lot of people have reached out to me. Oh, I'm on the left-hand path. Oh, I encountered Brother Bobby Hemmett's videos, and let me address this. And I've addressed it before. No disrespect. I respect Bobby Hemmett as an elder, and I'm sure he would tell you the same thing. Even though he has addressed left-hand path topics, he technically is not a left-hand path practitioner. Okay, I think people get it confused. So there's different, and it's just like anything else. Unfortunately, it's the nature of the game. Everything that comes out, sometimes it winds up it's like hip hop music. It gets commercialized, right? What's starting to happen over the last 10 plus years or so, rough give or take, the left-hand path is kind of becoming watered down and commercialized by certain people who are now claiming or coming forward and using that title or claiming to be left-hand path. And I'm gonna address that and try to show you, look, it's just not all music is in my opinion real hip-hop. And I'll use that as the metaphor, just like not everything out there being called left-hand path is. So let's go through it. Now, there's a lot of things that are categorized left-hand path, right? But you must understand from what perspective, right? So you have some people who think that everything that's left-hand path is the Church of Satan and Satanism, and or the Temple of Satan, or this, that, or they think it's just all left-hand path is categorized under satanic worship or Church of Satan ideology and theology. So I want to correct this. Hold on a second. Chat up. There we go. All right. Infernal blessings to everybody. I'm sorry, I didn't have the chat up. I'll get into the chat in a little bit. So you have that. And there's people who know nothing about the left-hand path. So when you say, and this is why I try not to really use that title exclusively, I like to refer to this more as the path of self-mastery for that reason. Because to the individual that's ignorant or does not know, they hear left-hand path and automatically they think devil worship, Church of Satan, that commercialized, stereotypical shit that's been out there for years. And again, I just want to make this clear. It's no knock on the Church of Satan or any satanic organization, because the Church of Satan has evolved in their theology and their ideology and their spirituality. So we're not looking at the same thing from when Anton LaVey first started the Church of Satan in 1966 and towards there today. But I just want to make it clear, not everything left-hand path is categorized there. Let's make that clear, right? Then you'll have other individuals who will say that they're left-hand paths, and then, as I've said this many times over the years, they're mixing fluffy shit in there, and it's a bunch of horse shit. It's a bunch of bullshit. Just because somebody is using the title left-hand path, that doesn't really make them left-hand path. So as I've said many times before, it's a simple way. Like, look, on this path, we test that ass, okay? You're not getting away with it just saying you're this or that. Your ass is going to be tested on that. Like, you can do that. We have a lot of people who into this new age, Alafia, Ifa, Santeria, African traditional religion, Hotep family, Grand Rising, Alafia shit. And then they want to incorporate new age nonsense. And then they want to incorporate watered down, what I like to call watered down left-hand path philosophy, and say it's left-hand path. See, you can get away with that in the Hotep community and in the Ifa community. And, you know, you could put on, like I've said many times over the years, you could put on the attire, you could put on your African beads and your big ass mood rings, and, you know, and your African and your robes and your big ass ankhs and all that shit, and say, you know, have the lingo down and the look. You can get away with it, right? Because nobody's really going to question you. Okay, can't get away with it here. Because when you're making the claim your left-hand path, you got to test that ass. What exactly are you working as far as current spirituality on the left-hand path? You got to ask these practitioners that. Are you working the Klippa? Are you doing work with some of the primordial gods, goddesses, and demons? Are you working exclusively with the Goetia? Do you work vampire magic? These are all aspects of the left-hand path in the occult. Are you working vampire magic, Luciferian sorcery? Do you work necromancy? And there's different levels of necromancy. And what aspect of necromancy are you working with? Okay. These are things that have to be brought to the forefront, because what tends to happen is a lot of people are going to get misled. And it's dangerous for some people, because I've gotten so many emails over the years what people thinking is left-hand path. They go fucking around and dabbling and mixing this and that, and it can create a lot more confusion within the subconscious mind of the individuals. Okay. Hold on. So we must be clear on that. Okay. So not everything out there or everybody out there who's saying they're left-hand path is actually left-hand path, because just like everything else, it's now starting to be kind of commercialized, watered, and dumbed down. Okay. Even when you look at, for an example, you've seen this trend now become big over the last few years. There's this fluffy aspect of Lilith now. There's this fluffy aspect of Kali now as this mother goddess, this new agey, and even with Hecate or Hecate, depending on how you pronounce it, anybody that's a left-hand path practitioner does not identify with those aspects. Okay. So if somebody in one hand is being fluffy, and 1 minute they're telling you to hug trees and I love you and this and that, and they're not really going into the dark elements of things, which is the root, right? And there's a lot. I've said this too with shadow work. Shadow work's becoming commercialized now. Everybody thinks they're doing shadow work. You know, I'm trying to get in tune with my inner child, and Man, shut the fuck up with that nonsense. Okay? A lot of that is becoming commercialized. And look, my thing is, look, anybody is entitled to lay claim and say whatever they want and claim it's this and claim it's that. I'm addressing because when people are emailing me, asking me, I have to be clear from the perspective that I'm coming at. I don't teach any of that shit. I'm not, if you're looking still to hang on to old ways and mix this with it, you're on the wrong path. Okay, if you want to really be on the left-hand path, the occult, the path to self-mastery, part of that is surrendering all the old ways that serve you no purpose. So if you still want to fucking hug trees and you still want to deal with these new age concepts of Lilith and the mother goddess and Grand Rise, all of that shit will leave you more confused than before you stepped on this path. Because the number one thing I see is people come from old systems and they don't even realize it. Subliminally, they're integrating a lot of their old ways on this path. They still look like look, first thing you need to ask a true left-hand practitioner, who and what is God to you? That's step one. That's step one. And that's going to give you a good determination if that individual is really has embraced the left-hand path philosophy. If they're telling you shit like the divine, the creator, the divine soul, all that fluffy shit, then subliminally, whether they're conscious of it or not or aware, they're still out there in slave mentality, slave indoctrination, and they're not saying anything different than what anybody else is saying. This is a path of liberation, self-mastery, non-conformity. So when you're a non-conformist, you're not 99% of the time or more, you're not doing everything that everybody else is doing. You're not going along with what mainstream is saying. You're not following just because the herd mentality and all the people in the herd and the packs and the groups of the herd are doing the same thing. You're more than likely going to be complete opposition to that. Okay? Because when you come on this path, as I've said many times before, you are voluntarily saying, here I am, deconstruct me, destroy me, break me down to pieces so I can build myself back up. And that involves eliminating, if you can't get rid of the old mythology, because I've seen it, if you still want to carry your old ways from previous paths you came from, then this path isn't for you. And that's okay. But stay in your lane, stay in your path, stay what you were suited for. This is not one of the paths that is trendy. Let me just hop on the bus so I can, if I got a channel, I can get some views or I can get some clout or this, that, or the third. This ain't the path for that because you're going to fuck around, Junior, and you're going to play games with yourself. Not only that, you're going to mislead a lot of people because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay? And that's why I've been honest about that from day one, going back years. And that's why what I do is different from what everybody else does. Okay? This is why what I do it's just not for everybody. And again, that's okay. But I have to make it clear because when you're emailing me about, do you work with archangels? Fuck no, I don't work with that. That's all that religious shit. Can you connect me with the angel Raphael? No, I have no desire to. I supersede the angel Raphael. I don't need any of that shit. And I get it. If you're a person that needs that stuff, then you need that. But guess what? If you do, you're not left-hand path. Okay? If you're still in that, do you do the banishing ritual, the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram? I already told people I don't banish. Banishing is for weak people. Okay? A true dark sorcerer, magician, necromancer, Luciferian sorcerer does not banish. Okay? Because I've explained this many times before. What are you banishing? First, define what the term banish means. So if you believe that when you do a banishing ritual, you are completely banishing energy, my first question would be, where does it go? Does it just disappear into nothingness? And if you believe that to be true, you're even more dumber than I thought. Okay, because basic science we learned in 4th grade, 5th grade, energy can't be created or destroyed. Energy can only be manipulated because existence or energy, it just is. Okay? So you can't destroy energy. You can only manipulate it. So my question would be to somebody who believes in the concept of banishing, and we'll use that lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is very fucking religious because you're invoking archangels. It's all that stuff is Hebrew mysticism. It's not the occult. Just because you study the Kabbalah or the Kabbalistic tree, that is not the occult, people. It's Hebrew mysticism. Don't get mysticism confused with that either, because people get confused with that. Okay? So again, where does the energy go when you banish it? Give me a direct reference and location. You can't. Okay? See, the difference of what a real dark sorcerer magician does, we invoke all energies from all four corners, which is the science of the square when you're getting into the quantum. We invoke all energy, dark, light, and I always make reference, for an example, to the casting a hermetic circle in Egyptian Heka is a great example of what I'm talking about. Because when you're calling forth the forces of light and darkness, and you're basically, when you're done casting that full hermetic circle, you're creating an 8-pointed star of chaos. And primordial chaos is the root or origin or the source or the essence of things in its prime state. And all good or what we claim or what we label as humans good or bad energy comes from that. And any real practicing magician or sorcerer knows you need all of that. Okay? You can't just have light, peace, love, and light all the time. Peace, love, and light. I love you. I love you. That's just not a reality. And look, if you want to live in that world or that realm, you can. You can talk all that fluffy shit, hugging trees, holding hands, kumbaya. One day we're all going to unite shit. It's just never going to happen. Okay? And all you got to do is look at life in front of you, and it dictates that. So any real left-hand path practitioner doesn't approach it with a false mindset. Okay? There's no such thing. There will never be a day while any of us here right now watching in this moment, in this time period, that are living and breathing, where you will wake up one day and everybody be holding hands. All races will be unified. You're fooling yourself. Okay? Because as I've said many times before, anybody that's on this path knows a lot of us are tribal by blood. Okay? And there will always be that conflict. Okay? And this confirms why sometimes you can walk into a room, you don't know somebody, but just their presence aggravates you or agitates you. Just something tribal brewing deep within you. That's the reality. Go back and reflect over the years how you might have been a part of groups and organizations and movements, and think about when you were in meetings or gatherings, how there was just that always one or two people that would just strike disunity in the group, whether it was argument over money or business or something. There was just always that one person that had, or two people or three that had a certain energy, because that tribal shit comes to the surface. So we don't preach a false message. Well, first of all, we teach, we don't preach, right? But we don't teach a false message of pie in the sky, of fake unity, because the masses have been doing it for years, and all you got to do is turn on your TV and look at the world today, look at politics, look at religion, look at the educational system, etc., and you can see it's a hot fucking mess, okay? So first and foremost, it's a path of self-preservation, right? First and foremost, it's about you getting yourself right before you can be any good to anybody else, okay? That's step one, right? And this is not a path about trying to save people, okay? Because at the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do regardless. The sooner you figure that out as a mature adult, the less stressful your life will be, okay? Because I've seen it before. You could sit there to talk to somebody till they blue in the face and they'll be guessing you to death. Yeah, you're right. And they just go back to doing the same shit that they were doing. You can't change somebody. They got to want to change themselves. You learn that from a very early stage on this path. And number two, you start to realize as we come on this path, as we all know, for those that have really been traveling this path, it's a path of isolation, right? That's one of the top emails I get all the time when somebody first starts on this path. I get it all the time. Man, I'm going through some stuff, this, that, and the third, and they'll describe feeling lonely or depressed, and I've made it clear that's signs, okay, that you're withdrawing from your conformist ways, because you're starting to feel different about things. You're starting to see things different. Okay. You're not feeling the same about things you felt for a long, even people. You don't really resonate with people the same way anymore. Okay. It's something that arises within you because it's changed. There's something inside of you changing. Remember, this is, as I've said many times before, this is an inward journey out, not an outward journey in. Where most other spiritual paths, you're always looking outside of yourself for some form of salvation. And that's why I said that's not left-hand path. When you're praying to external deities and you're looking out there in the sky somewhere for something or somebody to come for you, to save you, to help for you, to assist you. When you're in African traditional religions like Santeria, like I was for years in Ifa, and you're praying to Shango and Obatala and Yamaya, you think in your mind that they're going to come and assist and help you. No, the helping hand you're looking for is at the end of your arm. Okay. They don't do shit for you. You activate the aspect of those deities, you activate them within the psyche, but it's you that has to carry out the work. See, we don't pray and grovel in front of deities and think that something external is going to come and fix all our problems. Okay. That too is a clear indicator of what separates somebody who has a left-hand path approach as opposed to somebody who does not, but maybe claiming they are. Because like I said, unfortunately, you got people out there who think everything, they think, oh, you're on the left-hand path. Oh, so you're in the Church of Satan? That is so stupid. No, that is one small fragment of what is out there being labeled the left-hand path. It's just a term, okay? It's a term that basically means the left-hand path. Actually, you can go back to the practices of Mama Marga, to the ancient Dravidians, is where that term really started to take shape. And it's just, to put it in simplistic lay terms, it's somebody who, again, goes against what's considered the norm, a nonconformist. Meaning they're not going to just agree with everything because everybody else does it. You're not afraid to speak your mind and don't really give two shits if somebody agrees with it or not. You're somebody who has their own thoughts, their own mind, and who's on a path to self-liberation because you control your spiritual sovereignty. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can lay claim to that because everybody wants to fit into some Mickey Mouse club or some group that makes them feel comfortable. And I see it all the time. And there's a lot of that shit out there now, more so in these last few years than ever before. Recently, I just keep getting emails about this. Oh, such and such, and I was on the left-hand path, and I saw this and that, and I saw your videos, and I've been studying on the left-hand path, because I was watching Bobby. It's not the same thing. I just want to make that clear. It's not the same thing. That's why everything out there being classified left-hand path today by people is not left-hand path. I don't want people to get deceived. So be specific. If you say you work the left-hand path, explain to me some specific currents you have mastered and work with. Like, are you a vampire magician? Do you practice necromancy? What do you know about Luciferian spirituality? Okay. Do you work Egyptian Heka? And do you even know what Egyptian Heka is? Okay. Have you really done shadow work? I'm not talking about get in tune with your inner child, boo, 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 and all that shit. I'm talking about, have you really pulled up that trauma that has been plaguing you, that you've been burying, thinking you can pray away or meditate away to some external deity, and only to find out years later all of that resistance created a stronger persistence. Okay? Talk to me about that. And if you can meet up to those standards, then yes, to some degree, you would be on, what would be classified amongst real left-hand path practitioners, the left-hand path. But don't sit here and tell me your left-hand path and Grand Rising and Hotep, and that's just going to get people more confused. Okay. Let me see some of the questions we got in the chat. Kind of going to be a free-for-all because I just wanted to come on here for a little bit. So we got some questions. I'll kind of go into the chat in between. Again, greetings to everybody because I'm just going to be on for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours max. Yeah, Angelo, that's a good term for it. A lot of dark fluff out there. And again, it's got to be addressed because unfortunately, just like everything else, when it becomes, as it starts to grow and evolve and becomes more well-known, people try to capitalize off it. Again, I always use the music thing, right? Look at all forms of genre of music. I always use that for an example with, hip hop. Look how that's changed. I don't even know what that shit is, what we have in front of us now, that mumble crap and that, the ippity dippity doo shit and trap music. And look, it's it is what it is, right? But same thing is happening with the left-hand path. It's becoming watered down and commercialized. And there's a lot of people out there laying claim to it, and they're not. And all you got to do is put them to that test. So you can get, like I said earlier, you can get away with that Hotep shit, My Beloved, Grand Rising, Ashe, Grand Rising fan, all that bullshit, because everybody's got that lingo down. And nobody, it's funny, because for an example, being in Yoruba and being initiated in Ifa years back, it's funny how nobody knows no other words but Alafia or Ashe. So some of them ain't even authentic in that shit, but nobody questions them. Okay? And why is it important? Look, I ain't trying to step on nobody's toes. I'm trying to step on necks and crush heads. Why is that important? Because it'll prevent you from getting misguided, like a lot of us did back in the day and over the years. Because you're going to find out half of these people don't know their ass from their elbow. It's just they're not being asked the right questions. That's all. You got to ask the questions. Don't be agreeing and co-signing on people's shit when you can't confirm it. And I tell you guys that's why I don't get on here and tell stories, right? I don't get on here and go into rants about personal experiences like you see a lot of people do, because it's personal, right? If you haven't experienced that, you can't co-sign on that or agree with it because it's subjective in nature, unless you've had a similar experience. How many times have I said that over the years? Millions of times. So that's why I don't get on here like people will get on their channels and say shit like, I got download from the ancestors. That kills me. Like they got a message for the whole world. And nobody's asking them, what ancestors are you talking about? Be specific, because to just say you got to download from your ancestors, or no, they don't even say they say the ancestors. That is very vague, very misleading, because I want to know, are you speaking to your specific ancestors? If it was some unit, what, who, what, where? Get in particulars. We don't ask those questions. You know what it is? Because people have herd mentality. They just want to follow shit. They just, whatever makes them feel good, they think is right. So they co-sign on people's bullshit. Oh, that is so heavy. Oh, that is so deep. How do you know? You can't even confirm if it's real or not, but you're sitting there signing off on the shit. So a lot of dark fluff out there. What else we got? Joe, what's going on? Yeah, there you go. Hell self. Good point. What else we got? Samuel King says, at what point on the left-hand path does one put others before ourselves? And at what point on the left-hand path do we embrace selflessness? That's a really good question. And this it's actually an important question outside of just being a really good question, right? First and foremost, you start to learn, whereas other paths, it's always, you're always being taught, it's always about do for others, right? Do this, do that. It's always about sacrificing, giving, and you're supposed to do this and that. So we learn you're still supposed to a degree, that aspect still exists, but it's now facilitated in a different way. And let me explain, okay? You only give help to those who help themselves. That's number one. Number two, you also have to understand the principle. At some times and points, you've got to learn to just say no, right? And not have to have a reason for it. Because sometimes that can fall in alignment with the principle. Sometimes the best way to help somebody is don't help them at all. And that applies to people who constantly take advantage of you, people who only try to come to you because they need something all the time. We all have had those people in our lives that need to borrow money, or They got an issue, they got a problem. The only time they reach out and contact you is when they need a favor. So you have to learn at those moments, that's got to be shut down because that just keeps taken from you. And sometimes we're programmed with this, what I like to call this universal guilt, where we think we're obligated, where we have to help people. And then people start feeling guilty. Oh, if I don't do this, who says who? Right? That's something that was programmed into you because you've been taught through systems of conformity that you're supposed to. Now, the different story is sometimes there are genuine, and this is where you have to be the good judge of correct character, because sometimes people can mistake your kindness for weakness, right? Because they always know that you'll crack. But sometimes there are real, genuine people who get into bad situations that need help. That could be family, that could be friends. So the law of preservation, which is real simple, if you have the ability to help this genuine person, then there's nothing wrong with doing that, as long as it's not going to put you in any situation or any degree, or if you can sacrifice something to the point where it's not going to really, put you out of commission, then that would be the right individual to help. So you have to be very selective, who you're gonna extend that helping hand to, right? Or who you're gonna put before you. Now, we have to also shift to obviously children and direct family members. I've always said this: family is gonna be your worst test. Obviously, let's look at it from a parent perspective. Obviously, from a parental perspective, you're gonna sacrifice more for your kids, right? Especially when they're younger, right? So you have to realize their age, where they're at in their life, but then it gets to a point where you got to grow up, right? So that's going to dictate how they're growing, how you're cultivating them. So I'm trying to show you different aspects, whether it's family, friends, whether it's from a parent to a child perspective. But when it's just people leeching off of you and you know they're leeches and they're not doing anything to help themselves and all they do is come to you when they need something, cut that shit off. Okay. And now, as far as embracing your selfishness, I like to use the term, there are some points and moments in your life where you're going to have to be respectfully selfish. When you know that a person is up to no good, they're shady, they're shifty, they're coming with some slick shit, and they come in with an angle, sometimes that's where the saying no comes in. That's where sometimes you have to be respectfully selfish. Because if you know they full of shit, you just got to say, nah, can't do nothing for you. And you need to make sure that doesn't interrupt what you need to do for yourself. Because what tends to happen to a lot of people over the years who are in these do-good systems, these do-good religions and philosophies, they get so caught up in helping everybody else and they don't do anything for themselves. Okay? That's it. Right? So a lot of this, and it's a great question, but a lot of this is applying common sense and logic, right? And that's an important key on the left-hand path, along with critical thinking skills. Okay? So a lot of it is applying common sense and logic. And then, as I've said this before, some people, you just can't teach common sense. You can't. You're either born with it, it's in the DNA, or it's not. But I tell you what, when you're grounded, as you hear this term, being grounded in your power. And sometimes in cases like this, if you're an individual where people gravitate towards you, because maybe you're giving off a certain energy, or maybe you've had, you have a certain reputation for being a very helpful person, this or that, and that's cool and everything. But not everybody's coming with sincerity. You got people coming because, oh, that person's a sucker. Oh, I can borrow $500 for them. Oh, I can get them to do this. When you know that and you sense it clearly, man, no, I can't do shit for you. I have no problem telling somebody no, I don't give a fuck. Okay, if I know you're full of shit, not only will I tell you no, I will tell you you're full of shit. Okay, just to put that final stamp on it, and that's it, and have no regrets about it. See, we're not taught to do that because that docile mentality that we learn to turn the other cheek, love your enemies. That's not really what Christ was teaching. When you really go into the book, and I don't want to shift the whole class to that, but when you're brought up in a society that teaches that crap, love your enemies. When your enemy strikes you on the face, turn the other cheek. That's a bunch of horse shit. Those are individuals that are putting a dogma out there to control you. So just be respectfully selfish in the right moments. Now, again, I don't want to just follow it all up with negativity, but if there's somebody sincere, and sometimes people get into bad situations, right? It happens. And they're good people. So I want to put that out there too. It happens, right? And you know them. Like it might be, for an example, how you can tell that real simple. Say you know somebody for a few years and you see their track record, they were a hard worker, you know, they were a family person, whether they were a man or a woman, they took care of their family, this, that, and the third. Maybe they fell on hard times, they got laid off, right? Right? You see, those are unique situations. Or maybe something tragic or some type of incident took place. See, that's somebody, if you have the ability to help, because you already know that they're good people, then yeah, that's somebody, if you can help, you help. I'll go out of my way if I can help somebody like that. But when I know it's the shady motherfucker that's up to no good, that just is full of shit, not only will I tell them no, I'll tell them you're full of shit. Okay? I ain't got time for full of shit. Okay? Anyway. What's going on, Sperl and Lily? Keep It Real Ministries. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. Cosmic Mirrors. I smoke elder trees. Yeah, being an adversary for, yeah, I mean, look, that and that term, let me address that too. And you'll hear this too come up. The adversarial current, right? And again, when you're saying adversarial or adversary, you're in adverse again to the norm. And satanas, or the root of that word, and I hear people mistranslate it so many times incorrectly, it's adversary. Okay, that's all you are saying when you say that. But people have this Hollywood shit, you know, they see shit on the internet and shit in the movies, and they get all spooked out with it. So when you say you're on a path of the adversarial current, it's another way of saying you're a nonconformist. Okay. And just like, look, it's, you know what's crazy? It's like a religious person could come up to you and say, and try to force upon you and say stuff like, you need to be saved, or, you know, this, that, or the third, or something regards to that. But as soon as we make a statement and say, well, that's cool and everything, but I don't agree with that. And also, oh my God, you get attacked. So why is it right for an individual to express it one way from their perspective, and automatically when you have a different perspective, people might react like in shock or horror? You want to know why? It's real simple. That's that programming, right? Because they have dictated and they continuously pump out what is mainstream, what is the norm, what is acceptable. And people have embraced that. And people automatically, who may not know, and you see this all the time, people who may automatically not know anything about the left-hand path of the occult, this is why they immediately go into judgmental mode. Say, oh man, yeah, so that's Satanism, that devil stuff, right? No, that's not. You're talking about a small fragment, and you're talking about something you have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, and that falls in line with what I say is the number one disease that plagues this planet. Is called ignorance, and a lot of people suffer from it because a lot of people make statements about things they have no knowledge of, or a lot of people make claims about things that they claim they are and they have no knowledge of. Okay, what else we got? Cosmere says you're one of a kind, you have changed, but it's always been a good thing that you reflect. I don't think it's an every man thing because it's worse for people who are set in traditional people ways. Yes, 100%. And that's why, look, everybody, this is why we call it path. One of the titles that I like to use, and you always hear me say, is path of self-mastery, because that's what I mean when I say everybody's journey is unique. It's different. Are there some similarities that you can resonate with others along that journey? Of course. But this is why that group religious philosophy doesn't work. This is why a lot of us who have come from those different paths and systems, whether it be any of the three major monotheistic religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, whether it may be any African traditional spiritual systems, whether it may be Eastern philosophies, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever, we got to a point where we felt like there was more. Because the group thing, sometimes an individual rises above that group thing and they feel like there's something missing, there's more. Like, this is okay, I get it, but I feel like there's more. Like, and then you start questioning things, and what you think is your rebellious nature, what they teach in that past is something bad. You shouldn't be rebellious. You shouldn't question. You shouldn't ask things. That's the true God or goddess of you rising up, saying it's time to wake up, God or goddess. Enough of this. You've been asleep in this shit for long. Because those lesser religions, I'm not saying certain basic things of morality and spirituality you can grasp from those things. I'm not saying there's not any good concepts that you can't apply universally, but they're not going to get you to that point of self-mastery, right? They're gonna, if you stay in them, you stay in systems of servitude. And the problem with those systems, you're constantly serving something. You're constantly praying to something outside of yourself. You're constantly waiting for some external event to happen to bring you salvation, right? I always look at it like this. Another thing that's become trendy over the years, I'll get back to the chat. I'll keep scanning through it. Another thing that's become trendy over the years is this whole UFO extraterrestrial movement thing, right? You got people in there who have now become just as religious as Christians. You got something. I mean, look, there's nothing. I've heard it all going back to the 80s. I've heard Zachariah Stitchin talk about it, Dr. Delbert Blair. I've heard them all talk about it. Okay, everybody keeps rehashing this Anunnaki stuff. Okay, as if it's new. Everybody keeps rehashing the Nibiru stuff as if it's new. Okay, the bottom line is this. Okay, to all my alien people. Okay, and I've said this before many times over the year. If you were sitting here right now, okay, and the sky cracked open and some aliens invaded, what would you do? What would you do? Let's see what thoughts are running through your mind. These are highly intelligent beings who some people say have telepathy, right? Factor that in for a moment. If you're not on their level, spiritually and intellectually, and they launched a full attack, what would you do? See, I've kept it as simple and basic as I could. All I'm saying is, if that happened, put my head between my legs, kiss my ass goodbye, and hope it's quick. Because none of us should be afraid, to fear, to die if we've prepared ourselves, correct? Who would want to live through something they don't have the ability to live through? That's number two, right? So just like they program you with religion and use fear, they do it through the same thing with the extraterrestrial UFO community thing. Look, and I've done videos confirming, yes, of course there's more intelligent life form out there. We're not the only intelligent life form. But I've also made it clear you don't sit and live your life in fear. Because if something would have happened tomorrow, something just happened tomorrow, but it doesn't change anything you do now. And remember, this path is about living in the now. The only moment that counts is right now. Okay. And I want to go through that whole thing. I've gone through it many times before. I told you this thing called existence is one continuous moment. You think it's separate incidences, but it's not. The present moment is now. The past, the present, and the future is now. You just think it's separated because that was part of the trick. That was part of the plan to get you into this paradigm of a beginning and an end. Because if they didn't establish a beginning or an end, they couldn't create a whole religious ideology, right? Because the Bible was precepted on the beginning. Read Genesis and read Revelations, right? As Revelations is the end, right? So they got to get you inside that box. So once they got you inside that box, they can start controlling the way you think. They can manipulate your thoughts. But when you step outside of that linear time shit that they've been trying to spoon feed us for years, and you start to realize that everything is one continuous moment, from what you categorize as your birth in the womb to, I don't care if you're a grown-ass adult in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. But it's hard for the mortal mind to conceive that. So wait, no, I went through stages. I was a babe. You appeared to go through stages. You were taught that they were separate stages when you were never taught it was one continuous moment. And understand the difference, like I've said before, we're not having to rehash it again and again, the difference between linear time and cyclical time, right? That's how they get you. All right, see what else we got in the chat. Melanin98 says, can I trust gypsies? I have no idea. There's so many different types of gypsies out there. I couldn't tell you. That's just a vague question. What else we got? What's going on, Amanda? Oh yeah, Melanin. Yeah, a lot of those. What you know what's funny about a lot of those Black conscious community movements? And look, going back years, I told you one of my first introductions to consciousness or so-called knowledge was the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. Right? I went through all of those movements back in the day. And it's so funny how you'll hear them have these so-called scholarly debates, and they're using all European people that wrote books. It kills me. It's just, you're sitting there talking all this pro-Black shit, and then you're using all these sources by these white archaeologists and European authors and scholars. Now, to me, at the end of the day, it's irrelevant, because to me, facts is facts, truth is truth. I don't care who or what is saying it. I don't care if you're Black, Latino, white, Asian, it's irrelevant to me, right? You learn that as you become mature. But see, that pro-Black shit too has become a crutch to lean on, because most people that are stuck in those movements don't really understand the full scheme of what's going on in this world. It's deeper than race. It's gentrification. It's classification. It's economic status and quo. And the quicker you wake up and see what's going on out here, you're going to find out the hard way. It goes deeper than that. And then they set up these split movements. You got, your white supremacist groups. You got your pro-Black conscious movement groups. And that's all done intentionally to keep the division, the dividing. Now, I'm not saying, look, I want to make this clear. I'm not saying there's not differences genetically and spiritually between races. I'm not saying that there aren't brands of racism that exist out there, because it does. Anybody who would think not is foolish. But what I am saying, those who embrace that in its totality as the narrative get sucked into that paradigm. And that's why when you turn on all these platforms, they're talking about the same shit all the time. You see them all the time. It's Black Hebrew Israelites versus the Kemetic community, the Christians debating the Hebrew Israelite. It's the same. And notice 99.9% of the times, the discussions and the debates and the arguments, I like to call them, are about religion, further proving how toxic religion is and the sickness and the disease it creates mentally. People still arguing over the validity of the Bible and the biblical characters. The people in the Kemetic community are arguing, oh, we were here first and we were kings and queens. And well, I never seen Pharaoh broke either first. And a lot of them people in them communities, not all, I don't want to be judgmental, a lot of them conscious community motherfuckers is broke. They ain't got a pot to piss in. They can't even reach into their pocket and buy a hot sandwich, right? You show me one pharaoh that was broke in Egypt. I've mentioned that a million times. Show me a pharaoh that was broke. They always like to say, oh, back in the day, we were kings and queens and royalty and rich. Well, why ain't you that now? And then here come all the excuses. Well, you see, then it's the white man and blah, 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 and this and that. And there's a million excuses why they can't, but not one or two reasons why they can't. So I don't want to hear a back in the day speech. I don't care about that shit no more. See, that's for weak-minded people that want a feel-good speech. It makes them feel all fluffy and warm, makes them feel proud. They stick their chest, but then guess what? They go home and go back to their miserable life, okay? And nothing gets accomplished, okay? So there's a lot of, and there's race. You know what's deep about the movements? And for those that have been in the movements, know there's racism within the movements. There's the light and dark skin thing that goes on in there, because some of these movements embrace ethnicities that so-called are part of the Nubian or melanated family. That could include Latinos and branches of Asian ethnicities, etc. And then there's the light and dark skin thing. That paradigm, I'm telling you, I saw that myself, experienced it, and I saw that with other people. There's still that light and the field Negro and the house Negro mentality inside the organizations. Okay. Oh yeah, and you're gonna go through hell if you are mixed ethnicity, or if you're very light skinned or fair skinned. You're gonna go through hell in those organizations because you're never really gonna be fully accepted as being black enough. Okay. So not only are they dealing with the external racism that they're teaching about, there's internal racism in those organizations. And I look, anybody that says otherwise, full of shit. Because I could sit there and for days and point out shit that I saw with others and experienced myself. 100%. Okay, so there's a lot of that there. But the thing that kills me, you'll see somebody on them platforms doing a presentation, and they quoting white archaeologists, white scholars, this, that, and the third, and then talking about the white man is this and the white man is that on a platform controlled by white people. That's even the more funniest shit, right? This YouTube ain't black owned, right? Think about how dumb they are. And they're only being allowed, just like I'm being allowed, or anybody else that has a platform that's part of the YouTube community that has to follow the guidelines. You could be booted off this tomorrow, right? So think about how stupid you got to be to say, oh, the white man's this and that, but you're using the white man's platform to get that message out, okay? So don't talk about self-independency and doing for self and this, that, and the third. Start a black YouTube, right? Just saying. But good point. Yeah, Cosmic Mirror. A lot of people, look, I don't know if it's just my channel. I've heard other people say the thing. I believe YouTube controls the algorithms. Whether you subscribe to my channel or not, if you want to get all notifications, right? And I do it because I subscribe to other people's channels. And you're supposed to hit the notification bell and then when you hit the bell, drop downs. You should have all notifications checked. And some people do. I get this all the time. They go back, yeah, I'm subscribed to your channel. I have the notification bell activated. I have and they tell me they just don't get it. Some do, some don't. I just, I don't know how that algorithm thing works. I want to get into all conspiracy theories, but I do believe, they have some control on that. I've heard other people say that on other platforms, but it seems like if you have a platform that's maybe not mainstream, your algorithm doesn't get out to as many people. And obviously you can see that in the views, right? And I don't manipulate my views. And don't be fooled. A lot of those channels that you see 400,000 or 500,000 views, you can pull up videos. They have what they call view rooms. Pull this up, you'll see it. It's fucking crazy. Where they have and you could hire companies. There's companies, for an example. I ain't even bullshit. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. But let me put it out there. You can hire third-party companies to boost your views on your channel. And you can pull up videos. There's countries, a lot of these companies are in India and China, and they set up what they call view rooms. They got all these phones on the walls, tons of them. And what they do is all day, you're paying them, they go on your channel all day. And this is why, I'm not saying everybody. Some people are getting some of those views legitimately. I don't manipulate any of my views. So if you see my video has 500, 600, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 views, those are just natural, genuine views. I don't do anything to manipulate my views. All right. Because when you see somebody, sometimes it's a little suspect, right? You saw their video one day and the next day the views doubled and tripled. You can hire, all we got to do is Google it to see what I'm saying. There's companies you can hire, third-party companies that boost your viewership. Okay. So that's the reality of what it is. Not everything you're seeing when you see somebody got 500,000 views on one video. 9 out of 10 times, that's probably not accurate. Some it is. Maybe sometimes if it's like a music artist, a real popular music artist, for the most part, that could be accurate. But pull up the video of the view rooms. That shit is crazy. It's crazy. They got phones all on the wall. And they just got them all set up. And all they do is go through all your videos all day and watch them, click views. Now, YouTube got smart to it, right? If anybody has a YouTube channel, you also know I forgot what year they changed it. A few years back they did. You could just click a video for a few seconds or a minute and you would get credited with a view, not no more. I forgot, you got to watch an X amount of time of the video now to get credited for the view. So they caught on to part of it. They know. So you'll see, if you guys have an account, you'll know. They sent that new, when they update their terms and their guidelines. And I forget, it was a couple of years ago. I'm going to say maybe, 3-4 years ago, maybe. I could be wrong. When they changed some of their user terms and guidelines. Excuse me. No longer could you just click a video and get credit for a view. You had to watch it. I think it's for a couple of minutes now. And if you don't watch it for a couple of minutes, you don't get the view. But that's just the nature of it. But anyway, that's a good point, Melon, at 98. Good point. God's Rare says, you made by night. I know I never see lies. My bell ring. Yeah. Well, glad you're here. What else we got? Yeah, that term download is strange because it is tech jargon, right? I agree with you, but I think there's people trying to sound heavy and deep. Look, you can go back to videos I've been doing years ago. I don't co-sign on none of that shit. To me, it's comical when somebody gets on YouTube and goes, Hotep family, man, I got some downloads that the ancestors gave me. Again, whose ancestors? Be specific. That is very vague. Did you speak to certain tribal ancestors? Was it specific? Because see, when they're just vague like that, it leaves no room for error. You can't question them. You see, I'm the dude in the room that's going to be specific. What ancestors did you get these downloads from? Was it your genetic bloodline ancestors? And does that message necessarily apply to myself and everybody across the board? Was it a specific ancestral lineage from some particular culture or spiritual system? Are you classifying certain deities you believe you're getting downloads and having it? Got to ask those questions, because then anybody can just get on here and go, I received them downloads from the ancestors. And they told me make a bologna sandwich every Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So does that mean we're all supposed to go make a bologna sandwich every Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? It's stupidity. And 9 out of 10 times, here's the deep shit. 9 out of the 10 times, it's just very vague shit. It's nothing even really like, tomorrow a bomb's gonna, something specific. It's always like, you are powerful and you need to come into your powerful. Or don't let anybody, it's usually just some common sense, vague, safe shit. It's never really anything of substance, like nothing that like you can go, oh shit. You know what it's also like? It's like people that when something happens, like when COVID happened, how everybody came out after the fact and the ancestors told them that COVID was this, that, and the third, but none of them told them when it was coming though. And nobody questioned that. I said, look, I can pull up. There's a gang of videos out there still posted. It was like the 5G people. I said the same thing. I don't want to talk about the C word too much because YouTube is real sensitive when you talk about the C word. But it was like when that first came out, where was all the 5G people making the false predictions and prophecies? That it was 5G causing it. It was 5G. See, it was the ionized radiation that was mutating the cells. That's what was causing it. Not realizing 5G has been around. They've been using it way long before they introduced it to the mainstream or the public. And there's no more levels of ionized radiation in the 5G than putting a Bluetooth in your ear or being close to a microwave. No different. Okay? But nobody wants to use common sense and reason. But all these people were making these bold predictions and nobody holds them accountable. Okay? They knew everything, but they didn't know when COVID was coming. Why does everybody know everything after the fact and nobody ever can tell you shit before the fact? That's how you can tell somebody's full of shit. Okay? So that's why so when somebody's getting on the internet talking, I'm getting downloads. Well, I got a download. I got a message for you, family. Hotep, Lafia, blah, 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 and all that bullshit. It's usually some basic, vague shit like, they told me that you're a powerful being and you need to be grounded in your power and don't let nobody walk over you. It's just some random, vague shit that, okay, where's the substance though? You ain't telling me nothing that I don't already know, but that's just the way it is. All right, what else we got? But that's a good point, Stance. It is. It's a tech jargon word, right? All right. Yeah, thanks for even putting there. Yes, the 2025 yearly forecast readings, you see it in the ticker on the bottom. They are open. I've already got a bunch booked. I will get to work on them Actually, I'll be starting on some of them next week. I'll be back to more normal on Monday. So book yours now. Believe me when I tell you, get in now. It's at least a couple of days to a week out. So you got to be patient. This gets real busy with that. So book them now. Okay. Yes. I mean, that's a good point. This Jesus thing that they did this, and look, I've always said, I don't have a problem. And we were talking about this in the other night's class. I don't have a problem with the Bible or the Quran. I have a problem with when it's taught from a religious aspect, right? When people fail to realize it's an esoterical occult book that comes from other cultures that predated it. When you know how to read it correctly from an occult perspective, it takes on a whole different meaning. I have a problem with it when it's men who have created these established religions around it, and they've literalized everything in there, and they've created a bunch of nutbags who want to teach this crap and get people to conform to it. That's when it becomes a problem. Okay? So even this Jesus that they teach about in the Pauline doctrine of Christianity, because you'll find the modern day Christian really follows the teachings and the books of Paul, because everything they do is adverse to what Jesus taught. And their only justification of it is, well, this is what was revealed to Paul later. And the only validation they have it is Paul's 3 accounts in the book of Acts on his road to Damascus. Yet all 3 of those counts contradict each other, right? So there's a lot of confusion in that, right? So Pauline Christianity is what's being followed today. If you look at it from, and I'm just saying, if we're going based on the stories, right? Let's just say we're going based on the stories. When you look at the character type Jesus in the Bible, yes, he was a rebel. He was a nonconformist. He was anti the establishment. He was criticized in them stories for what? Why are you hanging out with crooks and robbers and tax shysters and prostitutes and whores and criminals? And he would answer them with shit like, does the physician go to the well, or does it go to those who are sick? That's how he used to answer them, right? When you see me, you see God. Blasphemy. He's saying he's God. He says, when you see me, you see God. Is it not written in your law? And notice he separated himself in that chapter, and that's Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, when he's talking to the Pharisees, right? When they questioned him for saying blasphemy, you say you are God. And he said to them, is it not written? He didn't say our law. If he was part of them and affiliated with them, he would have said, isn't it written in our law? So he clearly made a separation in that statement. He says, is it not written in your law that we are gods? And that's in 1034 in the Gospel of John. And he's referring to Psalms chapter 82, which is about 8 verses. And he's referring to King David's quote. When King David was talking to the congregation, he says, I've said all of you are gods, children of the Most High. See, they leave that part out. And then the next verse says, but ye will also die like men. They never put that part in there. So when in that story, when Jesus is referring to that quote, he said, I'm not the God. You're trying to label me as that spook God in the sky. And then you can go further, because in Genesis 2:7, it says what? God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, and man became a what? A living soul. So what he was trying to say was every individual has the essence of God within them. So when you see me, you see God. This is left-hand path. When I see you, I see God. When I look at creation and everything that manifests into existence, I see God. They couldn't understand that ideology, because they wanted him to get into that system of conformity and worship. And that is very left-hand path in nature when you look at it from that perspective. So the real Jesus in those stories, or the real character type of the real Jesus in those stories, right, was very left-hand path in nature. And then there's something in Matthew 5, in Matthew 24, where he told them, beware of those who say that I am Christ. See, they misinterpret that. They think it means beware of people who come and say they are Christ. It's not what it says. Go read the text. He says, beware of those who come saying that I am Christ. He never referred to himself as Christ. That's a Greek term, comes from the word Christos. And Acts 26 is the only place in the entire Bible you find the word. And it was used as a mockery. It says the disciples were first called Christians in Antioch, okay, where the word Christ is derived from, Christos. And it was used as a mockery. And there's no possible way that Christ ever referred to him, that term Christ was ever referred to him as when he walked, because that's not the language he spoke, right? HaMashiach, right? The anointed one. There was many Mashiachs anointed. David was anointed. It clearly says that. So the term Messiah was not exclusive to just Jesus in the Bible, right? But HaMashiach was exclusive, right? That gets into something else. But that term Christos, the Christ, it was a sign. And he made it clear there will be people in the later days coming saying that I am Christ, meaning him, not meaning people coming saying that I am Christ reincarnated. But that's how they taught it to us years ago. Okay. And look, he didn't teach that turn the other cheek shit. That comes in Paul, that Paul garbage, right? Because remember, if he was predestined to die on the cross, he told the disciples, gather swords, I'm ready to fight. And then what did he say? According to the story, when he's kneeling down on his knees in the Garden of Gethsemane, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me, right? So even though if people say it was predestined and he knew this was going to happen, maybe so, if you believe that. But I can tell you what, in that moment, when that reality kicked in, he was ready to fight. Okay? It's just facts. I mean, we can go on more about that, but I don't want to take up all the time with that. What else we got? That's a good statement by Raven. Selflessness doesn't mean, when we were talking about that earlier, doesn't mean neglecting yourself. It means giving from a place of abundance, not depletion. Yeah, and sometimes the reality is, too, when speaking of the depletion factor, if you just don't have it to give, you just can't give, right? And sometimes a lot of us have done that in the past where we gave something and we were taught like that's some noble shit. Oh, that's some noble. He's such a great, she's such a great. Well, how noble can that be if you go starving now? Well, you're trying to give something that you don't have, right? And that's what I mean also earlier when I was saying sometimes it's okay to just say no. It might be fucked up. But see, we were programmed with guilt because, and especially when it comes, say, to family, we're automatically programmed like you have to help family. One thing I learned on this journey with family, right? And people will use that against you. Family will use that against you when you can't help them. You'd be like, oh, no, I can't. Oh, come on, man, we family. By blood, we might be. But just because we're related by blood don't necessarily mean you fit the description of family. Family is not somebody that just comes around, calls when they need favors or they want something. That's not family. That's just somebody that's related to you by blood. And sometimes you have to relay that to certain family members. We're family, but only by blood relation. But we're not family in the sense of what the definition of true family is. So you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested to that on this path. That's a test. And that's one thing Jesus said in the Bible, right? Your true test will be your family. He says that in the Gospels. That will be your biggest test in life. That will be your biggest struggle and hardship, your biggest obstacles and challenges. It's right there. And this is what I'm saying, when you filter out all the bullshit and the nonsense, if we look at the character type of Jesus and you read the story, it's very left-hand path in nature. Hold on. What are you chewing? What are you chewing? What are you chewing? I don't know. He's got something in his mouth. I'm gonna start smacking the shit out of this dog now. Nah, sorry about that. Dog had something in his mouth. So yeah, when you filter out all the religious bullshit and really read the story, it's very left-hand path in nature. And when you apply it from an esoterical perspective and you remove all that religious bullshit, it takes on a whole different meaning. What else we got? Take me to your leader. Yeah. Listen, there's something, speaking of the alien thing, this was yesterday. And apparently it's some old pictures that are recycling. You know, there's some article. Man, was it the New York Post? Anyway, it was on one of my apps, you know, UFO sightings over the Capitol building and DC and this, that, and the third. And somebody else came up and basically said, these are recycled pictures. There's always it's always the same thing. These four lights, this, that, and the third. Look, I've always said this going back years back. Okay. The technology that they've been using, before they introduced it to us, they had it for years. The stealth bomber, they were using that stealth bomber 15, 20 years before they were even using it, right? You can go research, and look, I don't deny the fact, but you could go research Area 51 out there in Nevada. You could research Roswell. Yeah, if you would be a fool to think, okay, that there is not intelligent life form that exists outside of what we know as Earth. But here's the reality. Obviously, they have some agreement in place, right? Because if they didn't, we probably wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So it goes back to my original point. If you're gonna sit there and live in fear, because the question I would pose to an individual who comes up with all these conspiracy theories, all these fear tactics, and this, that, and the aliens are gonna be. What can you do about it to stop it? Just give me some particular solutions and answers of what you would do about to prevent it. Now, if you can't really do anything about it, so then next question would be, so what is your approach now moving forward? Because my approach is simple. We know that stuff exists. It's how you embrace it. I live my life today like I will so-called live it like tomorrow. It's not going to change anything I'm going to do. I'm aware. I know if it happens, I know that hold on one second. This dog, I'm going to fucking whoop this dog's ass. What are you doing? What are you doing? Sit your ass down. What are you doing? Sorry about that. So yeah, it doesn't change. It shouldn't change anything you need to do, period. Okay? So you be aware. That awareness, as I say, knowing is half the battle, right? Now having knowledge is half the battle. You're just aware. I can't put it in the way. I just don't fear that. If I walk tomorrow down the road and got abducted by some aliens, I just got abducted by some motherfucking aliens. Okay? I'm not gonna change my approach, my perspective. Because people that are constantly in panic mode and conspiracy theory mode live their life in terror and fear. Okay? That's just ridiculousness to me. So yes, you can be educated on it. That's cool and everything. But when you live in fear and conspiracy theories, that's a whole nother story. Okay? What else we got? So there's your answer. Angelo says, did you ask if you can trust gypsies? I'm a Roma, Sicilian gypsy. No, never trust a gypsy. Yeah, I mean, that's why I had made, said, what are you talking? What kind of just so many different gypsies out there? If you're talking about like gypsies that do fortune telling, psychics and things like that and work magic, you gotta be careful. You gotta know what you're dealing with. Yeah, well, speaking, Angelo Rosini brings up too, the pygmy dwarf magic in Egypt. I've referred you guys many times. There's a deity in Egypt called Bes, B-E-S, and he would be in that category. He's a pygmy. And Bes goes back to the Neolithics. And contrary to belief, he's not after the pre-dynastic Egyptians, he's not a Hyksos deity. He's not a Hyksos deity of the last 46 dynasties of Egypt, which is the main dynasties they teach you about. Now, Best, when you go up into what's called Nubia and Aswan, as I've told you guys before, in that area, there are more pyramids, more of what we know as Egyptian culture there, that when they migrated from Nubia or Aswan and Sudan into Egypt, they brought some of those deities with them. Best was one of them. Best goes back to ancient Nubia, right? And he was the protector of women and children. He protected the children in the womb. He comes across as like a short pygmy deity. Some say he can sometimes appear ferocious. There's a similar deity in Italian witchcraft, or witchcraft that comes from that region, a deity called Ndusi, who looks just like Bess, almost the same thing, right? And there's cross references to these cultures. There's that connection with the Moors. I mean, it gets into a whole bunch of other shit. But yes, that there was deities that were brought in from ancient Nubia into Egypt, those are the pre-dynastic Egyptians. And the Pygmies and the Watusi tribes, when you go back even further to the Neolithics, who occupied the Nile region prior to before there were pyramids there, right? That's how ancient some of those deities go back, okay? All right, what else we got? How do I measure my development and growth in the draconian path? So let me answer that part first. Results. That's how you measure your growth in any path. So again, I don't know exactly what practices you're utilizing. I'm a draconian. I'm actually a draconian high priest. But if you're doing rituals and you're doing work, if you're getting results geared towards whatever the intent or the purpose of your rituals are, then you're getting growth. But I may kind of question the fact that you're asking that maybe you're not getting growth. Then I would have to question, you might have to reevaluate exactly what it is you're doing. Your approach could be off. So that's number one. Also, if you have any books that aid in the way of the dragon books that aren't directly talking about draconian magic, also work. I don't understand. Maybe you worded that. That's a little confusing. Also, if you have any books that aid in the way of the dragon books that aren't directly, I'm not really understanding the way you worded that. Maybe there's something you could type further down. So I'm not going to attempt to assume and answer that. Let me see if you could clarify that. Just the way you worded it was a little confusing. The second part, okay? RK says, I'm a Luciferian and doing shadow work nonstop. I don't belong in any group, and that's okay. I am alone doing my own. It makes me cringy when people on social media do it. Do it cinematically, like wearing black coats. Yeah, I mean, that's you know, that's just as bad as the ones with the black robes on the internet. Hail Satan and all that. It's just, that's the shit that I'm talking about. It's very cringy. It's very theatrical. It's damaging because it comes across to those who, like, let's just say the religious spooked out person, or maybe the sincere person who might be interested in the occult, has good intent. And guess what? Unfortunately, they go Google, and that unfortunately is the first fucking video they pull up. It just, right out the gate, it just promotes more stereotypes. And that's not what this path is about. And it makes me cringe too when I see that shit, when it's just all that cinematic shit for show. And yeah, but look, there's nothing wrong with you doing your thing. You don't need to belong, excuse me, to any group, even though, like, I have the Primordial Chaos Patreon page and we do have a monthly group ritual working. We do. That doesn't negate what you do in your soul practitioner work. You don't need to join anything. You're not obligated. You don't even have to participate in it. It's just something that I created on a monthly basis that we can get together in fellowship and do some work, you know, as a group. But in all of my group work, in all of those rituals, and those that's on Patreon know, there's always a part of that work in that group where there's individual work within that ritual, right? So yeah, you don't need to belong to any of that stuff. But it's crazy because, like I said many times before, the internet has been a blessing and a curse, right? Social media, the internet, all these platforms, it's been a powerful tool because we could do things like this. We could have classes and sessions like this where you can reach people in real time in the moment. But also it's been a platform for fucking hustlers and charlatans. That's why, again, like I said in the beginning of this video, that's kind of what part of this video was about. There's a lot of people on the internet now claiming to be left-hand path, and they're not. I'm just going to keep it real. They're not. Test those people. Ask them questions. Ask them about their background and their experience. I've shared that with you guys from day one. I've showed my credentials. I did a video a couple years back from where I came, showing you all my credentials, my levels of initiation, not because I wanted a pat on my back or I wanted to be special, to show you that I'm speaking from experience. I'm not just talking about shit because I read some books and I think I know something. I'm not just talking about from reading the books and gaining the knowledge. I'm also speaking from an experience perspective. So you guys have to learn to test these fucking people, ask them certain questions. And I'm going to tell you, if they're full of shit, you're going to expose them. Nobody ever asks the right questions. If somebody tells me they're on the left-hand path, first and foremost, if I meet them in person or they come to a gathering or whatever, I ask them about their background. Talk to me. What kind of work are you doing? How long have you been on the left-hand path? Talk to me about some of the currents you've worked with over the years. What do I mean by that? You work vampire magic, sorcery, Luciferian spirituality, Satanist? Did you work some satanic magic, black satanic magic? What? Talk to me. Give me more. Don't just say you left hand. That's just like I could say, yeah, man, I'm a baseball player. Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit? What level of baseball did you play? Oh, well, I started, anybody that really played is going to get in. Well, I started playing when I was young. I played Little League, some rec ball, played high school, travel, maybe some junior college. You see what I'm saying? That's the levels. That's explaining yourself. I played some junior college ball, semi-pro. So now I'm giving you a detailed background. So if somebody says they're left-hand path, don't just, all right, so break it down to me. Talk to me. Be specific. That could apply to anything. Okay? And unfortunately, like everything else, a lot of it over time, when something becomes trendy and popular, it becomes watered down and commercialized. And I've said this for the last few years now. The left-hand path, slowly but surely, people are trying to commercialize it and water it down. They're trying to mix it with new age shit, with African traditional religions. They're trying to mix it with the Alafia, Hotep, Grand Rising family bullshit. And it has nothing to do with that. It's deep. Most people don't even know where that term Grand Rising comes from. Ask somebody the next time that says Grand Rising, do you know where that comes from? That's a Masonic term, okay? I don't know how that's gotten incorporated into African spirituality, but that goes back to the Masonic craft, okay? So when I hear people saying Grand Rising, I don't even know if they know what they're talking about. And you know what the real Grand Rising comes from? And we talked about this at the conference. Most people ain't got a fucking clue, okay? If you look at any depictions where you see the two guards, like you'll see in Egypt sometimes a depiction of a entrance into a pyramid, and there's two guards on each side of the pyramid, and they're holding a staff. And if you look at their apron is elevated or it's rised, it's risen in the air. That's the Grand Rising. Also refers to the viral erection of the male. And that's what it means. It's said in the craft that a true man knows how to raise the apron. Talking about coming to an erection, which goes back to the priesthood of men. And if you've ever seen the deity Men in Egypt, you'll always see him depicted with an erected phallus, right? That all stems to the craft, the priesthood of men, Grand Rising, the whole night. A lot of people don't know where that shit comes from. So people are saying this shit, Grand Rising family, you don't even know where it comes from. See, that's just the type of person I am. If you're utilizing shit, you're saying shit, know what you're saying, know what you're doing, and why you're doing it. We don't just randomly do shit just to be doing it because it's trendy or it sounds good. Or I'm going to hop on the bandwagon because it's the hottest thing going right now. But unfortunately, this happens to a lot of things. It happens to music. It happens to sports, fashion. It happens in this conscious community stuff. When something becomes trendy and hot, people want to hop on the bandwagon. I'm not with it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not with it. I mean, stay in your lane over there, but you come over here and start talking to me that's your left-hand path. I got questions for you, okay? And you can have questions for me, and I'm willing to answer each and every one of them respectfully, okay? That's just my point. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of tired of the bullshit. Because I get emails about it all the time. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I saw your video and I was watching Bobby. It's not left-hand path. Let me clarify for you if I have not. Okay? And that's it. Jose Munoz says, all right, I don't know if you came on late. Do you work with angels? Depends on your interpretation of angels. No, I don't do any of that archangel work like with Raphael and Gabriel. No, I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not knocking people if they do. Samael is an angel, though. If you're talking about angels in that form, now understand too, because I always take it to the essence. The English word angel comes from the Greek word angelos, which just means messenger. So when you're saying angel or angelos, you're just saying messenger, right? Like even when you go back into my uncle's name is Archangelo. That's an old Sicilian name, Archangelo, Angelo for short. That's what the name Angelo means, right? It has root in the same thing. So when you're asking a question like that to me, what kind of angels? If you're talking about that Kabbalah stuff and that Raphael and all that shit, no, I don't work with any of that stuff. If you're talking about Samael, if you're talking about Abaddon, right? If this is the type of shit you're talking about, most definitely yes, right? And that's, again, further affirms my point, right? And, and it's a good question, Jose, but it further affirms my point. Not everything out there being classified left-hand path and occult is. Because I've heard people say they're left-handed path and then they're teaching you fluffy bunny shit about angels and stuff. That's not left-hand path, people. Okay? You could think it is. And then you could turn around and go to me, well, what gives you the right to claim what is left-hand path or not? It's not what gives me the right, what is or what's not. It's what's been established. Just like what's been established in their systems, whether that's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, African traditional religions, the Kemetic shit, right? They have things that have been established and accepted mainstream. It's the same thing here, right? We have certain things that have been established and laid out. And if you're not in that alignment with those things that have been established, then technically you're not left-hand path. That's like me saying, I'm teaching what I'm teaching here on this channel. That's like me saying, well, I'm in the Ifa community, and I'm Ifa, right? You would look at me and go, well, what you're teaching on your channel has nothing to do with Ifa. I might talk about Ifa from a left-hand path perspective, and I do. But what I'm talking about here wouldn't be in alignment with established Ifa doctrine. See, it's no different. So that's what gives me the right to say what I'm saying. Just like somebody would give them the right to say, well, Baniti, you can't be saying that Ifa is your system of spirituality because what you're talking about doesn't have anything to do with that. Correct. Bingo. Jackpot. That's why I'm trying to tell you, you got to ask people questions when they're making these claims. It's funny, people put titles in front of their names and nobody had questions. Doctor this, priest this, elder this, high priest this, high priestess that. And what are you a high priest of? What's your credentials? I'm done. Don't give me no shit on the internet. You took some course on the internet for a week or a month or a couple of months, and they mailed you some certificate that says you're doctor this, elder this, and that's the shit people do, right? A real initiated priest or elder is somebody that went through years of training and spiritual practice, okay? I don't put titles in front of my name. You see, it's right there on the screen. It's been like that from day one since I've been on YouTube. Baniti. Baniti means teacher. That's it. That's simple. That's it. I don't need to put elder, high priest, this, that in front of me. To me, that's ego stroking. Like that, people do that shit because they want themselves to look more spiritual and deep than they actually are. It's like the person that's constantly changing their name, their avatar. I don't need to do that shit. My channel's been Primordial Chaos. Well, I started out originally as Mother Nubia for a very short period of time because that was kind of to get people to come to the channel. But then I said, fuck that. I don't want them to get misinterpretation. But for the most part, I've never changed the name. It's been Primordial Chaos from day one. It's been Baniti from day one. I don't need to do You know, you see people change their name, then it goes High Priest, Ahmed, Akbar, Hotep, Heru, Ankh, Seti the Fourth. Just stop. And then you work in that fucking Home Depot. I'm not knocking if you're working at Home Depot, but I'm just saying, it's like, can we stop with the ego massaging? It's just corny. Okay. Hey, okay, says offering here and there. Thank you so much for watching me for almost another resonate with you. I appreciate that. Angelo Rosini. There's 100% pure Arabs with white skin. 100%. 100%. And genetics can be very deceptive. You can see, look, you can look at that with Arabs, right? And there's different, well, we got to be careful with that term. Arab, first of all, is a term that means wanderer. It's not a race, right? Because when you look what's called the Arab world, you have different groups of that. You got Turkish people, Syrian people, people from Iraq, Iran, that all identify with Arab, right? But that's not a race. Turkish would be their ethnicity, right? We know there's only 3 races on the planet, and all those ethnicities fall under one of the 3. You're either Mongoloid, Caucasoid, or Negroid. So all those ethnicities fall under one of those 3 characters. So that's a very good point, because whether you're looking at, you have dark-skinned Arabs, right? You can go to places like Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Jordan, Northeast Africa, where you have some Arabs who are more melanated, have darker skin. But you can even look at that amongst Latinos. Look at Cubans and Dominicans, for an example, right? And look how genes is a crazy thing, right? You can look at some Cubans who look completely Caucasian, but you can trace their family lineage, and they might have somebody in that lineage. You shake that tree, a dark-skinned African's going to fall out of that tree. Same thing with Dominicans. You can have Dominicans that look very fair-skinned, European, and then you can have some Dominicans, they look almost Haitian. You can't even decipher them between a black Haitian or a black Dominican. That's genetics. That's genes. So there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. Kashigi says, the thing I noticed with the left-hand path is that if you want to connect and develop relationships with others, it's best to tap into the right-hand path current and energy. Well, I don't know if I fully agree with that, right? Because, I mean, that's the easier route to go because it's more of a group thing. So to that point, you're right. But I believe you establish strong connection in the left-hand path, but you can be very particular if you want to establish relationships, whether that's personal, spiritual, or sexual. It's very easy to work with that in your ritual work. So I kind of have a different opinion on it. I understand what you're saying, though. From a mainstream perspective, yes, somebody might look at it like that. But I want more selective, genuine relationships, because when you go into those mainstream right-hand path community thing, it's very generic in nature. A lot of it is phony, fake, and it's that herd mentality. So it may not necessarily always be a good thing, right? But you can specifically establish relationships. Yeah, this is another thing. Good point here by ARK. RK, it's cringy when they always portray. Oh, let me talk about that too. That they will do this and that, blackmail, just to get power and let people be scared of them because they say the left-hand path. Yes, and that's the other thing. I've addressed that several times over the years. Be careful of that person too who gets on the internet talking about how powerful they are and they can do destructive work and they'll do this and that to you, and they're so powerful, and then they obviously are offering their services. Reach out to me and I can kill and destroy all your enemies. Or if you mess with me, I can do this and that. First of all, I'm going to tell you this, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. There's a term going back years. Real bad boys move in silence, right? Or bad girls in this case, because it's not just about the boys anymore, right? A real badass motherfucker moves in silence. Anybody in their right mind is not going to get on social media and run their mouth and expose themselves like that. And any true sorcerer or magician or dark magician that has that power would laugh at that, number one. And number two, would probably just like think that person is complete idiot or fool and would never condone anybody who truly has that power doing that. You don't, when you have that type of ability or power, you don't get on a social media platform and announce it to the world, right? And just go on braggadocious rants. And I've seen many people do this and claim they have the power to do this and that. where there's people who are really have that power that are lurking in the shadows and silence, laughing. And now have that person marked just in case, right? Just in case. Okay. So that's another red flag. Be careful of those people, and be careful of the motherfuckers that be on the internet all day, all the time. Now you got to ask yourself another question. One, they don't have any business or other career or job, because if they're on the internet all the time running these hustles, that's how they're making their money. This is why you don't see me doing I might have the time like you see me driving around. I post some 20, 30-minute rides, but where do you see me posting them? Why I'm driving from point A to B. That's the free time I have. So when I have free time, I try to create some content and post it. And then when I get the time to come on live, I may come on live once, maybe twice a month. I just don't have that time. So if you're seeing a motherfucker on the internet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, red flag. Just what they do for a living. They're on the internet hunting and looking for victims, right? And then there's people that fall for that shit. Oh, let me hire this person. They can get my ex-husband back. They can get my ex-wife back, or they could do this or that for me. No, I mean, you're fooling yourself. But that exists. That's real. And I've spoken out on that for years. Okay. And that's true. Melanin98. They swear they are all gods. They gotta humble themselves because some white people are advanced as fuck on the magic stuff. And you're gonna find that too. I've seen Asian people advanced in this, Latino people, white folks, black folks, people from all walks of life. I find out when you're in this realm, throw that race shit out the window. You're going to get deceived by that, because if you look at one individual from one background who could have the same ability of power, another individual from another race or background have that same power. I've seen it. Okay. So this made me change my way of thinking years ago. It's about how the individual, he or she, applies themselves. And if they want to put in that work, time, effort, and energy to master themselves, they can. And don't get it twisted. That's a good point by Melanin98. Don't get it twisted. Stop thinking. Stop stereotyping people. Look. And I've also found this out. People don't fit the description of what you think would be a dark magician, sorcerer, or a left-hand path practitioner. See, just like when you look at conscious movements, you think the typical conscious person has to look a certain way, right? They have to have on the dashiki with the ankh and the beads and the braids and, this and that. We have a stereotype with that, right? It's the same thing. People think everybody that's on the left-hand path and the occult, they have to be dressed in black all the time, and they look all dark and gloomy, and they wear these big satanic medallions, and or they walk around in hooded robes, this, that, and the third. That's not the truth. I've seen look, I dress like this. T-shirt, shorts. I might wear a little pendant here and there, a ring or two. Sometimes I don't have anything on. Sometimes I might be just wearing a Yankee T-shirt, a pair of shorts. I've seen the motherfuckers wear a plain pair of jeans, T-shirt, just like the average Jane or John Doe you see out in the public. And then when you meet them on another level, you're holy shit. I would have never thought that. So don't have a stereotype, a physical stereotype in your mind of what somebody on this path is about, and don't have a spiritual stereotype in mind of what you think a person on this path is. Because I've just seen the average John and Jane Doe looking motherfucker, and then I've met some people at gatherings and meetings like if I saw this person out in the public, I would have never known. Okay, so get that out of your mind. There's some very powerful people walking around that just look like normal, everyday people. So we don't know. Not everybody on this path is walking around dressed in black robes, hail Satan and all that. See, that's just as dumb as thinking vice versa. Okay? So that's a very good point. And that's why you always humble yourself, because you don't know who you're talking to sometimes. And I've learned that over the years. You could have been in the presence of somebody very powerful and had a conversation with them, and you didn't even know it, because you might have this certain ideology or stereotype in your mind. Okay. Yeah, ARK. I keep my comment sections closed from day one, and simple reason why. And I won't open them. I never will. I don't want it to distract from the platform. What do I mean by that? When I first came on YouTube, I don't like the fact if you go to other people's platforms, not the fact they might be coming at whatever the video was about and talking shit about that. Not even just for that reason, because I handle that. But my point is, I don't want people arguing in the comment section among themselves. Now, people have a difference of opinion on that. Well, you should keep it on for that. No, I don't. It's just I don't want to attract that energy. I've never had my comments open for my videos, and I choose it for that particular reason, because I just want people to tap in, take the information, whether you love, like, or hate it. That's irrelevant, but I don't want that to transition that. It's just my perspective into the comment section. It takes away from it. And then all types of nutheads start coming. I see this in other people's platforms. So from day one, since I've been on YouTube, I made that decision from day one. And not only that, I don't really have time to respond. Sometimes people make a comment directly and they're looking for a response. I just don't have the time to respond and to monitor the comments and things of that nature. Somebody can contact me directly when it comes to that. But I understand that people have asked that in the past, but that's the reason why I keep it like that. All right. Kashigi says, learning from the right hand. I'm gonna take a few more questions and wrap this up. I got to get up early in the morning. My little guy has a tournament, about a 2-hour ride from here, and I have to report at 8:30 a.m. So I got to be out of the house about 6:45 in the morning. So I want to do a few things for the night is out. But let me answer the rest of the questions in the chat. Learning from the right-hand path will help you and will develop you further in the left-hand path. Most definitely. You begin to not only see through the crowd, but also gain the ability to see how to manipulate the crowd as well. Excellent point. And let me take that a step further. People always say, look, let me use myself as an example. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, right? Went to Catholic school from 1st to 8th grade until I got kicked out. 4 years of public school, but was raised in a Roman Catholic household, right? So I came up, more so my mother, my father wasn't, long story. He just went along with it because of my mother. Anyway. I always hear people say, oh man, I wish I would have known now what I did and I wouldn't even have to wait. No, don't look at it like that. It's good where there's a lot of us, and some of you I'm sure in here, myself, who have that experience. We came through that background. Majority of us came through more than likely some right-hand path philosophy or system, including myself. But the beauty is now, like Kashigi just said, you can go back now. I look at reforming that doctrine because now you can see it from a different perspective, because now it's that old adage, one goes into the darkness to do the work of the light. You have to go into darkness to obtain true intellect. So I can go back now and look at Catholic theology, look at Catechism of the Catholic Church. And now I look at the theology different, because when you're in that suppressed state of mind, you're just looking at it from what's being spoon-fed to you. So yes, it will help you a lot. Don't never negate. And I say this to anybody, if you came from whatever background prior to this, never look at it like, oh, I wish I would have never, ever. No, it's a good thing, because that was part of your experience, part of your journey to get to here, right? And I would encourage people to go back and study that stuff, but look at it through a different lens now. Now you can go back and read the Bible or the Quran or the Catechism of the Catholic Church through the lens or the eyes of a left-hand path practitioner. And it's going to take on a whole different meaning. And not only by doing that, or that's like a form of shadow work, but you're also reforming the information that was incorrectly taught you. Because now as you're reading, you can go, oh, that was this. Oh, I see why they said, oh, I see what they were trying to do. So now you got a better understanding, because you're not looking at it or reading it through the lens of Christian eyes anymore, right? You're looking at it through the eyes of God now. It takes on a whole different perspective. But yes, that's an excellent point. All right, what else we got? Kashigi says, oddly enough, I think from working so much on the left-hand path, I developed, clairvoyance. And you will. I don't know exactly. It's like empathy. Yes. And feeling energy unintentionally, people answering my thoughts, mid-combo, etc. That is definitely a residual effect of being on this path. Okay. You a lot of what we're calling our higher spiritual faculties, like clairvoyance, intuition, telepathy, psychometry, all of those things tend to be developed because you got to remember, as you're sharpening your spiritual senses, right? As you become more in tune, what's happening is you are changing your vibrational frequency or your energy. It's like they teach in alchemy, in hermetic alchemy. You're becoming less dense. When you make yourself less dense, you speed up your spiritual vibrational frequency, and you're able to tap into, quote unquote, what we're labeling as those type of gifts. So that is a very that is a process that will happen to individuals as they become more consistent on this path, and that's the goal, and that's what you want, right? Again, confirming a previous question that somebody had mentioned earlier about being on the path or results. That's results, right? And that's what I tell people. If as long as whatever it is you're doing and how you're doing it, if you're getting results, don't let anybody tell you to change anything otherwise, right? If the results are there and it's showing improvement. If you're not getting any results, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing. All right, see what else we got. Angela Regina says, talk about the pygmy dwarf magic history in Egypt. Well, if you go into ancient Egypt, well, there's a system, one that we practice on the occult or the left-hand path. It's popular in draconian magic, and not just draconian magic, but Egyptian Heka, Heka, which in reference to Egypt period itself is not really talked about. In my opinion, it's always this surface conscious stuff that's always talked about. Coming Forth by Day, as I've said many times before, is a book of magic and spells itself. If you really understand it and you read it, it's about casting spells. Now, as far as pygmies and dwarfs, right? The magic history in Egypt, right? Again, you have to go back and you have to start there with Bess, right? This is also filtered more, you'll see in modern day, where you see in Western esoteric magic, they have taken a lot of this and transitioned into working with elves, and you'll see fairies and a lot of this stuff that goes back, and it even goes back to, you can trace it back to the Celts and the Druids, right? Which, though you trace it back, it has its origin in Egypt and Africa, right? So specifically, you would have to go back into some of the texts in ancient Egypt that they don't really talk about, like the Book of Gates. There's some stuff you can allude to in the pyramid text, but the pygmies themselves, as I said, to really narrow it down to Egypt, because it has its root when you're talking about the deity Bes, B-E-S, right? And that's the deity I would encourage everybody to go look up. You'll find it has its origin and facilitated from there. Now, as far as specific practices, rituals, and things across the board, there's nothing I can really share with you here on an individual basis, because a lot of those deities are included in the magical hierarchy when you work Heka period. So I'll be honest with you, there's nothing I can refer you to offhand when it comes to specific practices outside of that foundation. But you can find stuff with it connected in Heka, right? And that's kind of the connection that I work with it. Now, in the Western esoteric tradition, working with pygmies and dwarfs and fairies and stuff like that, I don't really work with any of that stuff. I never have. I'm not knocking it. I know people have, and they've gotten, a lot of results with it. So again, I tell folks, if you're getting results, knock yourself out. Leprechauns, they're that where they get that tradition of leprechauns, that comes from that. All of that. Anytime you see, what's the cereal? Lucky Charms, pot, rainbow at the end of the pot. All of that has its root going back to a lot of those magic systems, the pygmies. But to find the real essence and origin, you got to go back to the Neolithics. And I tell people, I know a lot of people like to identify with Egypt because it's one of the first great established civilizations. But I always tell people who occupied the Nile region prior to before there were pyramids and what we know as Egyptian culture today. And that would be the Pygmies and the Watusis. And when you research the two tribes of the Pygmies and Watusis and getting into some of even the further magical practices, you have to go to some of the indigenous peoples prior to the ancient Egyptians. So the Watusis, they say, were tribal people who stood on average of almost 7 feet tall or greater. And then the Pygmies were the smaller people who were anywhere from 3'6" to 4.5 feet, right? That's when you trace it back to the origin. So there were a lot of indigenous practices that were tribal that go back to, say, the Pygmy deities, okay? What else we got? All right, we got Christians talking about spiritual warfare is funny where they just sit there like, yeah, well, man, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that. That's, I mean, look, when it comes to this war amongst themselves, this confusion, again, when you look at all of those groups, communities, whether it's the Christian community, the Islamic community, the Hebrew community, they're all disunited amongst themselves. It doesn't matter if it's white Christianity, black Christianity, or black Hebrewism, or white Judaism. They're all this, well, the white Jews, that's a whole nother story. But they're all disunited amongst themselves, and they all claim to worship the same God. It's chaos within chaos, and they have no idea how to make any order out of it, okay? Warfare, listen, what they fail to realize before, they're trying to fight the physical war before they fight the mental war. And I'm telling you, they're losing it, and they're losing it bad, okay? Because what's happening as that's being played out as a distraction, right? And always, I've done videos on this in the last few months. I can't remember exactly when. Go back when people always ask, well, when you say distractions, they're doing this stuff for this. What do you mean? To distract you from focusing on yourself. That's all distraction. So you don't really go within and really seek the answers you need to seek. So people get caught up in all that back and forth debate and all that sensationalism, and it absolutely does nothing. It keeps people in limbo. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Kadan says, how do you perceive gods/goddesses as external beings with their own will or internal archetypes of your psyche, or a mix of both? Okay, and I've addressed this question. So people always ask the question, are the gods and the goddesses, the demons and the spirits, are they real? Are they external? Are they internal? Which one is it? Or is it both? And I tell people they're only as real as you make them. What do I mean by that? Let's take a goddess for an example. And I've done this before, and I'll do it again real quick because I do got to wrap this up. All right, 9:27. Let's take Kali for an example. Okay. Let's take an individual who doesn't know anything about Kali, comes across some information on Kali, whether it's the internet, whether it's books, becomes interested, he or she, they start reading about Kali, they start looking at books and images and pictures of Kali, and maybe this person even goes to the length, they go over to one of the ancient temples in India of Kali, and they expose themselves to that energy, to that artwork. So what they're doing is they're storing in their subconscious mind everything that they're absorbing about Kali, imagery, information, intellect, the whole nine, okay? Now, we take a very widely accepted image of Kali is the one that everybody sees. She's depicted kind of with a bluish hue, and she has her foot on Shiva's chest, right? One of the most very popular images of Kali, right? So now you have stamped this in your subconscious mind, and what you may or may not realize is you're creating and giving life to this deity within your subconscious mind. It's no different than a person who was raised in the church, say Catholicism, when all those images stamped on the stained glass mirrors and in those picture books and in the Sistine Chapel in Rome, they're stamping in their subconscious mind the images of how they want those people to see those prophets and those people. And the deep thing about that, I told you guys before, preset, a lot of them, when you go to a lot of different churches around the world and you see pictures of the apostles and Jesus and the prophets, they got the people that painted those pictures. Those are actual people they knew. That's why they painted them looking like that. But that's a whole nother story. But my whole point is you as the individual absorb in your subconscious mind, and you've kind of now created who Kali is to you, including the imagery. So then people say, I go to work and I do a ritual and I have an experience and Kali appeared before me, right? Or created in that experience, she manifested externally before me. Is that real? Yes. It's as real to you because you created it. What do I mean by that? It still doesn't negate the principle, the first Hermetic principle, all is mental. Mental is all, the universe is mental. Because how Kali manifested to you and how she looked, you created it by everything you stored in your subconscious mind. It doesn't negate the fact that it still all starts within. But what's happening here is when she manifested, because if you understand, you're dealing with beings who are light and energy. When I say light, I'm talking about consciousness, not non-luminous light. And energy. They can take on any shape or form that they desire. So you're going to see them as you want to see them. Somebody else can have an experience with Kali. It could be similar or 100% completely different. And that applies across the board, whether it's Lilith, whether it's Samael, whether it's this, that, or the other. Okay? Your subconscious mind is your most powerful tool. It is the godlike part of your nature. Your cerebral cortex part of your brain is what creates those spiritual experiences. And that's why I always refer to that movie, The Matrix. And the reason why they called Neo, which was Keanu Reeves, was short for neocortex. Because every time he had an experience, they hooked it up to the neocortex part of his brain, some type of gadget so they could tap into his mind, right? And he was experiencing everything through the neocortex part of his brain, and it was very real to him, to the point that all his senses were connected to it. Even though everything was going on in here, he was able to break the matriarchal system and tap in once he was able to break the matrix, right? That's why, what's his name? Lawrence Fishburne's character, you want the red pill? They trying to tell you shit. So my answer to the question, there's a lot more to it, but my answer to the question is a combination of both. You do have external experiences in your personal work, but know it all starts from within first. That principle will never be negated. You can never tap in spiritually to anything until you go within your subconscious mind first. When you're doing that, whether you're just focusing, your concentration, you're going into meditation, you're always going within to connect with the divine. You're not going without, okay? You're always going within to connect with those demons, those gods, those goddesses, those spirits. You're not going outside yourself, right? But right-hand path systems teach you to go outside of yourself, and it just doesn't work like that. All right, so hopefully that helps. What else we got? Several times I heard Christian comes from the word Cretan, but I can't find a source for that. I'm not sure. Not even sure where that word Cretan comes from, to be honest. Or maybe it's spelled a different way. So couldn't really help you with that. What else we got? Peace be needed. Can someone actually be indirectly initiated into the clip path without their knowledge? Yeah. First, it depends on your definition, one, of indirectly initiated, right? So that's the term. You can tap into the clip path and be pulled into it indirectly because you could be working with some type of current or energy connected to it. So yes, it can happen, certain levels or degrees. Now, initiated is a term that has, again, varying different levels. So to be fully initiated in the clip path would mean you went through all of the 12 cliffs and tunnels that are associated with the cliffs. So I don't know if that can completely happen indirectly like that, but can you go through certain things connected to the cliffs that lead to initiation? Most definitely. And I've seen it happen to people. So let me give you a quick example. So let's just say somebody is doing consistent work with Lucifer or Lilith, or maybe they're doing work with Baal Hadad or any of the deities that are connected with the cliff rock. It can open those cliffs that they're connected to, which can lead them to other cliffs indirectly, because there's a connection there, and then you might find yourself drawn to that particular energy and for a particular reason doing work with that. So yes, it can happen 100%. But I don't know if you can indirectly, completely, not knowingly go through the entire clip hop in its entirety without knowing. I don't know about that. You know, I don't think that would be possible. But yes, indirectly, it can happen to a certain degree. All right, what else we got? Oh, the island of Crete. Yes, I've heard that before. I think somebody is just using the phonetics of the word. Now I know what you're talking about, Crete. I've heard people say that. I've never, to be honest with you, Ultra Instinct, I never found a direct link to that myself. Maybe it exists. I'm not saying it does. I've never found any validation for that. Okay. Just found out because my cousin slapped my auntie who was giving him and his sister a place to say we're gonna fight when. If that's family, I can do without it. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. That's always going to be your biggest test. It's sad, and if you know what the sad thing is, and I don't want to finish on like fucking down negative information, but it's sad because that's usually you're going to find when you look at your life, that's usually the most conflict you deal with percentage wise. It's always some type of family drama. Or some family bullshit, and that's why at a very early age, and I had a good, both of my parents have transitioned on. I got 3 sisters, but I've always had a good relationship with my family. I was fortunate, but I knew at an early age I needed to leave so I could do what I wanted to do and live my life the way I wanted to live my life. I mean, I left my house months after graduating high school, 17 going on 18, because I wanted to, right? And I'm going to be honest, if I didn't, I probably wouldn't have been able to do and accomplish the things I wanted to. So unfortunately, hopefully that situation, I mean, that's a lot of negative drama. Hopefully that you can that resolves, but yeah, it's toxic. You got to get out of those situations 100%. Yeah, because as far as the Draconian Current, I've always mentioned a great book is the Draconian book by Asenath Mason, the Draconian Ritual book. That is a great book overall because as a whole, it covers the Draconian Current with meditation, spiritual practices, how to conduct rituals. It breaks down all the Draconian gods and goddesses, breaks down the tools of the craft. That would be a good foundation all-around book, in my opinion, the Draconian Ritual book, okay, by Asenath Mason. And there's other reference to other books, the Draconian Egyptian Grimoire, but that's dealing with the Egyptian Heka through the Draconian process. You'll see there's a lot of references in there. Melanie, off topic, baby. Have you ever worked with any Greek goddesses? No, I mean the one but not in that form, Hecate, but not in the form as she's taught in modern day Greek mythology. I work with Hecate as a draconian god and goddess, a dark sorceress of magic and witchcraft. And she's very dark. She's very intense, very similar energy to Lilith, but specific Greek goddesses, I'll be honest with you, not offhand, no. Oh, I see. About with like with dragon magic specifically, without talking about draconian magic. I think Michael Kelly, Apophis, he has some stuff in there, but specifically with the dragon, not really. I can't really think at the moment. Now I understand your question. Now I know earlier it worded it was a little confusing. I'd have to go back and look. I can't think of anything offhand without referring it to the Draconic. Now, I know there's a lot of stuff out there that's not left-hand path occult that teaches you how to connect with dragon energy. All you got to do is Google that shit. A bunch of stuff will come up. But left-hand path, not sure outside of Michael Kelly. I'd have to go look. All right, take a few more and wrap this up. All right. What you said? That's funny because Grand Rise. Yeah, I mean, they say these Grand Rising. I laugh. I'm saying that because I've been a Mason for over 20-something years. And again, I'm not speaking out of my ass. I'm speaking from, I was initiated a Mason since 1998. I'm still active. Do I go all the time? No, I keep my membership active. I show up once or twice a year just to, fellowship with the brothers in the craft, and that's it. But I'm telling you, it's a Masonic term. I laugh when I started hearing people say that a few years. Why? People have been saying that now for, I don't know. It's been a popular term the last. Leave that out. I'm gonna have some, right? We'll take the other one out. However long it's been, they've been using it in a popular light. It makes me laugh. It's just, it's funny. There could be a connection there with Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham, Sam I Am. That's hey. I wouldn't doubt it. That would make sense. Yeah, you never know. You never know who you pass by and we meet in public, right? Hope for art. That is exactly what this path is about. It's holding the balance of both the light and dark aspects of one subconscious and equal in one goal of the left hand. You just explained Baphomet. You just explained everything that Lucifer represents. And I'm glad you bring that up because I want to make this clear. This is not all about dark gloom and doom. We connect with the dark side because it is the root and the essence of where all things emerge. But you also need what one calls light, right? Because that light that we're all seeking is obtained in that darkness. And it's not that what we're saying right-hand path philosophers teach about love, light, and philosophy, right? But it's not all about love, light, and philosophy, right? But you do need, it's like the Jedis and the Sith, right? That's what Sith philosophy is also about. And I always refer to that Star Wars a couple movies back when Luke Skywalker is up in the mountains living as a hermit, and he's now neutral because he realized it wasn't just about the Jedi and the light and the do-gooder. He also realized you needed the dark side too. And to balance and harmonize oneself out, you have to come with the correct harmonization of dark and light for that particular individual. That's what Lucifer is, the light bearer, right? Lucifer represents the harmonization of light and darkness simultaneously. That's why he's referred to as the light bearer. So you exactly, if I had to put the nutshell of what the left-hand path and the occult was in a short phrase, there it is. And I'll take is off, holding the balance of both light and dark aspects of one subconscious in equilibrium, one goal of the left-hand path. That's the goal. Beautiful. That's the goal. And I've been saying that since day one. And that's why Lucifer, when you look at the dark tree and when you look at what Lucifer represents, because they say he was what? An angel of light. But see, they trick you and they say shit like, that's why he is the God or ruler of this world. He was appointed the God or the ruler of this world. Okay? I don't have time to get into all that right now. It's crazy what you just brought up because we just did a whole class on this a couple of nights ago on Patreon. And we linked it into crazy shit going back to Melchizedek, the priesthood of the Catholic Church, and how the priesthood of the Catholic Church is connected to the Sumerian deity Dagon. I told you guys before, if you look at the cardinals, the bishops, and you look at the Pope, they wear the mitre. And if you look at the mitre, it's the tail of a fish. And if you go Google the Sumerian deity Dagon, right, he has the body. He is the head of a man and the body of a fish. And if you understand who Dagon was, he was the highest of all gods. That's who their priesthood goes back to. If you go back even further, it'll tie you into Baal Hadad. It'll take you right back to who they call Lucifer. I mean, the shit has layers upon layers. Trust me when I tell you. And that's that whole Catholic. I was going to do a short YouTube video on that. That whole Catholic priesthood goes back to who they think is the order of Melchizedek or Melchizedek, the Ancient of Days, who has no mother, no father, no beginning, no end. Mentioned in the book of Hebrews, chapter 5, who says Christ also glorified not himself, but was a priest after the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek was the one you see first mentioned in Genesis 14:18, when Abraham comes back from the slaughter and he brings Melchizedek bread and wine. This is where they get the whole concept of the bread and wine, the Eucharist. This is why Jesus at the upper room in the Last Supper, he offers the bread and the wine. It was a ritual going back to the order of Melchizedek. And it goes back to the science and the catechism of the Catholic Church, which we were talking about the other night, transubstantiation, right? As a Catholic, you must believe transubstantiation is taking place when the priest is consecrating the Eucharist, the bread and the wine. It's literally being turned into the body and blood of Christ. It's a ritual. Then you come up and you drink the blood and you eat the body. It goes deep. I'm trying to tell you, there's layers and layers of this shit. Trust me when I tell you, right? But I'm going to do a short video on that and extract a little bit about what we did in that Patreon class a couple of nights ago. That was in the Eastern Left-Hand Path Occult class. We talk about stuff like that. We go deep into the Bible, the Quran, the esoterical aspect of it. We go into the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. We go into all of that shit. We go into Aramaic magic because all of that has its roots. There's a connection there with a lot of that stuff. Okay. But hey, hope for art. That's a great. That's a great statement to put up. If I had to describe what is our goal as left-hand path practitioners, bam, bingo. Message. That movie, Don't Be a Menace to Society, while sipping your juice in the hood. Every time there was like a message, Keenan Ivory Wayans would come dressed as the postman. He would stick his head in the camera. Message. Well, that's message. That's what that is right there. Message. And that's facts. All right. All right, what else we got? Ja Rashid says, brother, I really appreciate your teaching. It is said that King Solomon can control the jinns. Are we able to do the same thing? Yes, but don't make the same mistake King Solomon did. So as we read the story of King Solomon had the ability to ask for whatever he wanted, did the right thing by asking for the wisdom. He got it, and everything, look, it's like the biblical in Matthew chapter 6, right? So seek ye first, 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all his righteousness shall be added unto you, right? That's what Solomon did. He sought the righteousness, the wisdom, the knowledge. But then we saw what came with it. He could have asked for the wealth and the riches, but he got it, right? He had gold, he had power, he had fame, he had concubines, he had harems of women. He was a player. Anywhere he went, he could have whatever he wanted. But then he opened up that path to dark sorcery and magic in the building of Solomon's temple. The saying goes that he used the jinn to build the temple. And when you get into craft, you learn a little bit more about that, the temple in relationship to yourself. But what happens is he kind of opened himself up, and then things kind of went amok for him. So yes, like Solomon, you have the ability to control the jinn, but you also got to know the protocols that come along with doing that. So for an example, let me simplify it in modern terms. Some people will open portholes and bring jinns through, but they don't know how to send them back. They don't know how to complete the work. And sometimes when you leave them running amok, and jinns are very tricky spirits, sometimes when you leave them running amok, they can cause a lot of confusion in your life and disturbances, for a lack of a better word, right? And there's different classes of jinn that you have to understand. And I've always talked about, for one, the most aggressive, the Ifrit, I-F-R-I-T. They're very aggressive jinns, very powerful. You can get them to do a lot of things for you, but they're not really here for you. They're kind of here to come through you because they have other intentions. And if you don't, you've got to treat them like strictly business, because if you don't, and they find a way to manipulate you, shit can start going haywire in your life. So yes, you can. You definitely can. Your mind makes her real. Would they be real if you never heard of them? Yes, and that's the crazy thing. Yes, and you bring up another point. Did they exist even though you never heard about them? Yes, they did, but they didn't exist to you. And that's the principle of you shouldn't accept anything as being a reality or true until you come to the realization of it. So this is why I always use this. I always use this example years ago. I always use this example. At some point when we were little, at some age, we all became aware of what the concept of God was, right? At some point, either somebody sat us down, we had an experience, whether it was your mother, your father, your auntie, your uncle, a priest, a teacher, whoever. And the question would be, at that moment, if they said, well, God is a being, he's up in the sky and there's heaven, that moment, that concept became real to you at that moment. The question was it real to you prior to that? No, it wasn't, because you weren't aware or you weren't at the realization of that, even though I'm using that that's a mythological story. But once you embraced it as real, it becomes very real to you. Now, in the sense that the spirits and the gods and the goddesses being real, it always has existed there in the psyche of your subconscious mind. So it's always been there. It's just sometimes something has to happen to awaken it. That's all. So yes, it has always existed, 100%. Okay. All right. Michael Thomas says, in the event that you are indirectly initiated into crypt, then what do you do to protect yourself or handle situation? That's tough to answer right now because it depends on the situation, right? And it depends on what you contacted or connected with. All right. All right. Yes, and that's what the fish. I'm glad you put that. I'm gonna leave it with that. Thank you, Ultra Instinct, and thank you, Melanin98. I was gonna say that and I mentioned that in the class the other night. What is the symbol you see that people have on the back of their car that represents Christianity? A fish. They'll tell you where that comes from because Jesus took the fishes and it's a symbol. No, that fish is directly related to the deity Dagon. Go pull them up. Christians don't realize they're connected to a Sumerian deity who they call a demigod. Okay, again, look up the Mitre, M-I-T-R-E. There's only the priests, the popes, the bishops, and the cardinals wear it, the three high-ranking members of the priesthood of the Catholic Church. And I can get into the whole connection of Cephas, St. Peter, Pepe, the Pope, from the Pope, who's supposed to be the vicar of Christ on earth because he built his church or he built his rock or his church upon Peter. And the Pope is supposed to be the direct lineage or Sicily from Peter on down to the present. It's so ritualistic in nature. It's deep. I'd be here talking about it for hours. But this is what we talk about. But listen, I don't mean to cut you off. I really got to get going. I probably exceeded by 20 minutes. I'll try to get on here, hopefully at least one or two more times for the end of the year if I can. Again, if you need to reach out to me for a yearly forecast reading, shoot me an email. 2025 yearly forecast readings are open. If you're on Patreon, I'll be posting. Don't miss the end of the year class. You didn't want to miss it last year. Oh man. If you want to see what you can expect for 2025, be in that class at the end of the month. I'll be posting the date for the Patreon members. Other than that, if you need to reach out to me, if you want to take my classes, go to my Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti. It's right there on the ticker. Tier 3, that's the tier you want to join. That's going to give you access to the 3 classes I do every month on Patreon for Patreon members. Plus, you get access to everything in the archive, 5 years worth of classes. I got almost, I think, 800 videos on here, probably close to that on there, but I go in on a whole different level over there because there's certain things I won't talk about here. This is just the tip of the iceberg here. If you really want to go in on a whole nother level, check out the Patreon page. You won't be disappointed, all right? Hey, if I don't see some of you guys before then, again, if you do celebrate the holidays, I do. I don't give a fuck if you do or don't. I want to get into all the conscious shit. Enjoy your holidays, but I'll get on here before then, and hopefully everybody had a safe Thanksgiving. Just don't eat too much. I know motherfuckers probably got leftovers. I got some goddamn cake I'm about to tear up over there calling my name. It's calling me. No, stop. Just want to get a little taste of that. That's the bad thing about having this shit in the house. because you know it's there. But anyway, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Infernal blessings, and we'll talk soon.